Call to order the meeting of the Committee of the Whole for Monday, October 24th, 2016. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Present are Mayor Marion Galbraith, Deputy Mayor Keith Hedrick, Councilors Jill Rusk, Stephen Sheffield, Conrad Heed, Lawrence Garish, Finance Director Ron Newhouse, Clerk Deborah Patrick. Excused is Councilor Andrew Avento.
Thank you very much. In a departure from the order that we usually do things, I'm going to ask you if we can go into executive session first pursuant to General Statute Section 1206B to discuss strategy or negotiations with respect to pending litigation. We need a motion. This would include Attorney Tallberg.
I so move.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. We'll go to room C8 and we'll be back. I'm going to ask for your indulgence to first do the appointment of firefighter Jeffrey Earhart. Am I saying that correctly? Okay. Then we'll do the Eastern Point Beach concession. Then we'll do the extension of the lease agreement, and then we'll continue. That way we'll get everybody out as quickly as we can. Okay. Chief, would you like to come forward?
Yeah.
Yep, you should probably come forward, and if you can sit to the side here, just so that
Here, I'll
backs
move that.
aren't to the camera.
Here, I can move that.
Or
You can sit with Ron, yeah, yeah, don't,
that's why
you can sit with Ron.
Okay.
You can sit with Ron.
Okay.
So we had a change to the agenda.
So we have, I'm sorry, so yes, we have under appointments, we have another appointment, this just came through today. So this is the appointment of firefighter Jeffrey Earhart. Welcome.
Good evening. Actually, a tremendous pleasure tonight to come before you to recommend Jeff Earhart to be our next career firefighter EMT. Interesting story. In 2004, I was sitting on an oral board panel for another fire department for new hires, and Jeff came up as one of the folks applying for the job. Unfortunately for Jeff at the time, he had just only had his EMT, and he was a dispatcher. But all three people on the board said, "This kid's got it." As a matter of fact, I told him at the end of the interview that at some point he'd be a fire chief. There was no doubt in my mind that would be happening. The Earhart name in the town of Ledyard is very well known. His mom gave 32 years in the school system. All my kids, everybody knows the Earharts. Jeff's born and bred, lived there most of his life. We're actually stealing Jeff from the town of Ledyard, where he is presently a career firefighter in EMT. Jeff is also an assistant chief in the Gales Ferry Volunteer Fire Company. He's also their training officer. Jeff worked for several years next door at Quonic Bridge. He was one of the firefighters that was laid off, and he left there and went up to Ledyard. But in the time he was off, and this is the kind of drive that we're looking for, in the time that he was off, he worked several part-time jobs, and he was sponsored to go to the state fire marshal's class, so he is already certified as a fire inspector and a fire investigator. So down the line, there's some savings to us. Just a couple of his certifications: he's firefighter 1, firefighter 2, fire officer 1, fire officer 2, fire instructor. I already said the certified marshal. He's a hazardous materials technician, pump operator, aerial operator. He can work on our air packs. He's been through the whole NIMS cycle. He's already been through the boating course. For his community-wise, Jeff is a child passenger safety seat instructor and technician. He's also a American Heart Association CPR instructor, and he's received several awards from the community and from the fire department. 2007, 2012, and 2014, Jeff was firefighter of the year. Jeff's familiar with our territory. He's worked with us many times, mutual aid. This is a home run. I'm excited because like I said, we sat with him for 20 minutes, 12 whatever years ago, and all three of us said, "This guy's got it. He's going to go on to do great things." So I'm excited to make my recommendation that he comes and does great things for the city of Groton.
Thank you. Jeff, is there something you'd like to say to the council?
First, thank you very much for having me here. Really appreciate it, and thank you for the opportunity to even come forth to this position. I actually started my career in education, trying to follow my mother's footsteps, and I was teaching in the school systems and learned maybe that wasn't necessarily my niche, but the fire service might be. It was something I was doing on the side as a volunteer, and I enjoyed it very much, and realized that the teaching aspect could exist in there, in that realm, maybe not in the public school systems, and I loved it ever since. And the chief was probably too kind in his words, but I greatly appreciate everything, and he really did. He's been involved most of my career, volunteering career side, and pushing along to further and help me, inspire me, that kind of thing. And to when the opportunity arose, when the position opened up, it was kind of like how the chief said, it was a no-brainer to me, and it was something I wanted to go after. And lucky enough, I'm sitting here before you, and just things worked out, and I think I can do wonderful things for the city. I truly think I have a lot to offer, as you see in my resume. I'm a person that really just doesn't stop. I honestly will give you a lot. Whatever you need, whatever you want. Ask my wife. Sometimes she thinks I give too much, so we have to always learn that balance. But I enjoy it. I lived in the city for a couple of years on Meridian Street, and learned how diverse the city is amongst this area. I grew up in Ledyard my whole life. I still live in Ledyard, but I've always been fond of, especially this area. I'm a UConn graduate, so obviously Avery Point still means very big things to me. My father retired from Pfizer, so I have a lot of fond memories of that area. So just a lot of good things, and Paul's boss is my favorite. So, I can't get around that either. So again, I'm very appreciative of having the opportunities, and if you have any questions, anything, I love talking and everything. So
I did forget two things. Actually, he does have a bachelor's degree, and he's 15 credits towards his master's in education. So I forgot I should mention that.
Any questions for either the chief or Jeffrey Earhart?
I have
Yes.
one question, if I could, please. You're a full-time firefighter in Ledyard currently, and could I ask why you want to leave there to come here?
it's a great question, actually. Definitely the challenge, for sure. The challenge, again, like I said, the diversification of the city, firefighting, it's, a lot of tasks you got to handle at once, depending on the emergency, and especially the events that can occur here in the city. You see everything from boating accidents, the vehicle accidents, the fires, it sets up a lot of challenges, and I see this as a place that my background can really excel and provide a lot of good skills for you guys, and your needs of that. And Town of Ledyard has been wonderful. Chief Saccone, my immediate boss, he has been extremely supportive. He supported me. He knows what's going on, and he is a retired captain from the U.S. Sub-Base Fire Department, and he knows that sometimes we have that itch to want to do more and fight it, and he sees that. He even told me this is the right move for you. We had a good sit-down conversation before we got too far involved in this in the process, and he told me don't stop, just do it. And he'd be there beside me in a pinning for sure. He's been a great mentor to me alongside Chief DeLee and such. So
So if and when you're hired here, this is where you want to stay.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm very, very dedicated father. I know, you've seen the steps and stuff. What I consider my first career, a couple hiccups, stuff along the way. The town was able to support me. I worked as a dispatcher for the town, and luckily it opened up to allow me to work full time again, and that's what I did. I got to work in the station that I volunteered in, and I think Chief made mention. He says I enjoy having you here, but you did more before, and I know you want to do more, continue to do more. So I'm a person that's very loyal and dedicated to what it things. So for sure, absolutely.
Any other questions? Seeing none, then I guess that we will see you. We need to move the appointment to the meeting of November 7th.
So moved. Second.
Is there any additional questions or comments? I almost did my bit about minutes. Are there any? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining. Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much.
Okay.
Mary, we're going to go to the Eastern Point Beach concession. For the council, you may remember that this question came up and we had asked Mary to look at some other towns and how they handle concession. And so Mary has a report for you.
I do. So I reached out through the Connecticut Recreation and Parks Association to pretty much all the communities in the state of Connecticut. 17 communities got back to us that do hold or do concession. Of the 17 that got back, one does it on themselves. They hire their staff, they man it themselves, and it's part of their department. One just took theirs back, but the other 15 do what we do. They contract out for an outside vendor. After I got that information, I reached out to those 15 to see what they charge, how they handle different expenses. I heard back from 3. Colchester, which is the closest one to us, they have a concession stand at a ball field that they rent out or vendor out for $1,150 a season with a $500 deposit. And they encompass or absorb the utilities of their concession stand. Stratford, Connecticut, which does a beach concession, their annual rental is $5,000, and that's all she would share with me. I didn't get anything else when I asked, do you cover utilities? I don't know if she wasn't in the office or whatever, but certain things it wasn't shared. Monroe, Connecticut shared, they do a $2,500 yearly rent, and they also absorb the utilities. So hearing that some people absorb the utilities, we don't absorb our utilities. So I went down to Groton Utilities to find out what the Garcias pay roughly average yearly for utilities, and it's $2,400. And then their rent of $300. So that kind of falls in line to what Monroe does because they charge $2,500 for the year. Monroe and Colchester, Stratford does a 3-year contract and then they go out for bid and renew. Monroe, it's up to the discretion of their director of Parks and Recreation. If they had a good season and everything went well and went smoothly, they just renew it annually. And that's kind of what we do here. And Colchester does they've had 3 different vendors in a 10-year period, so I think they're still trying to work theirs out. It sounds like it's a fairly new concession stand. So I bring that information back to you to see if we have any other questions from there.
Councilor Heed.
How many months is the concession stand open?
Ours?
Yes.
Father's Day, June, July, and August. Usually Father's Day weekend to Labor Day. The Garcias have in the past been opening on weekends, starting Memorial Day weekend. So it's about there's 3 weekends before we open for the regular season.
So that's not a lot of time.
It's 80 days. The beach is open for 80 days.
Someone who knows that.
Sorry.
Exactly, and who reminds us of how far along we are every week of the year.
I'm not that bad at it.
So the question to you was whether you wanted to go out to bid again. Mm-hmm. If we went out to bid, Mary would need to know, what are we bidding for? What are people bidding for? So that would require us to determine, who provides the equipment. Right now, the equipment that's in there has been paid for by us, but it's up to you whether you wish to put as part of that they would pay for any repairs or replacement, whether, what rent you want to do, But Mary would need to know that in order to be able to go out to bid if you decide you want to go out to bid.
There would be one question that I would be concerned about was the equipment that is there now, you know, the condition of it, what's the likelihood of when it might need to be replaced, and what expense would that put on us? And should there be any sort of a provision where they put any money aside to help replace it if
Right.
necessary? I don't know how good the condition is of any of the items, but there's quite a few items, if
Right.
I recall.
Yeah, we own, we have a freezer, a refrigerator, we have a fry-later, actually two, a flat grill, a hot dog roller. We have a chest-sized freezer that has the ice cream in, which we've replaced already since I've been here. Because I went to move it one day and it had rusted out. I moved the top and the bottom was still on the floor. So I had to replace that. And the hot dog roller we've replaced. We've gotten an ice cream machine, and we've gotten a few of those over the course of the 10
And are
years.
those expensive items?
The ice cream machine is probably the most expensive. The hot dog roller, I think it was less than $1,000. The cooler was, I'd have to go back and look. That was back in '08. That was a while back. So the refrigerator and the freezer, they do turn off. We do winterize those every season, so they're not on right now. They're not running. There's no free. They're shut down. So it's the ice machine. The Pepsi machine is leased from Pepsi. We don't pay for that. The Garcias actually pay for product. That's how we get that as a lease. So, and if that breaks down, they come and fix it.
And one other question, if I could. How do you feel about the situation with the Garcias? Are you happy with it?
It's gotten better. It was a struggle, I think, the first couple of years because I think when somebody new comes in, it's just a matter of getting used to how I worked and how they worked. And now that they're both retired, I think their availability to work the concession stands a little easier, and they're, Pat's not working second shift and coming in tired on the third day. They are open to new ideas for food suggestions. I did talk to them at the end of the season of that. I did talk to them about, how hard is it to cook a piece of chicken and make like a chicken sandwich or a chicken club? They have the rolls and maybe even salads, and she's receptive and open to those ideas. They've been there 32 years. Everybody loves raves about their food. I eat their French fries and onion rings. I'm not a big hot dog girl, so I don't eat those. But
The reason I
yep.
ask is because I know you have to manage them,
Mhm.
and if you're happy with them, then that's important.
Right. Yep.
So now, one of the questions we had though was whether the rent begins to cover any cost of equipment and things like that. So is there any conversation there? What are your druthers and what you'd like to do with this?
Can I share one other thing?
Yep,
Just
absolutely.
just so you know, too, one of the other things we researched is, like I said, we winterized it, so the refrigerator and the freezer and the ice machine have nothing, they're not working right now. So in the spring, RB Kent has to come in and recharge those and get, so we do have there is a $1,600 yearly charge to shut down and open up that we encompass that, we absorb that. We don't recover that either from rent, so I'm not sure if that's something we want to look at, or even equipment replacement, if we want to look at trying to try to start establishing some type of fund, so when a freezer goes or the ice machine goes, we have a contingency fund to do that. They've been paying $100, it looks like, from, if I look back to this, since 1984, which is, $300 for a long period of time. So we could, and then they're not opposed to that either. I did talk to them about that too. I said, the rent might go up, or might have some, other expenses that we might ask you to help us with. And they were both very receptive to that too. I think they enjoy running the concession stand. I think people think they own the concession stand, but they truly do enjoy it.
Well, it should be a minimal.
Minimal?
By terms.
Word we'll never
The burden for us is
Right.
less as least possible. For expense. Being that we don't make any great profits.
No.
So.
So some direction for Mary.
Do you have any suggestions to give us on what you think a fair rent would be and that would help provide some money in the event that we had to buy new equipment?
I'm not sure, but I mean, it would be nice to be able to, like I said, put some away for new equipment. How much we're willing to go, do we stagger it? And like this year we go up 100 and next, or, something. It would be nice to get $1,500 a season. At least that covers the opening and closing of the facility. Now, or any other like electrical issues that we might have, because, there's things they plug in a crock pot this year and they have a slushy machine next year, and, it would be nice to gradually get there. And then maybe from there, I don't know, work from, who's to say in 3 or 4 years, we might be going out to bid. Who knows how often the negotiators are going to come back. It's a long haul and a long summer for the both of them.
So
But
as it is right now, they pay $300.
They play $100 for June, $100 June, $100 July, and $100 in August.
So if you did that over a 3-year period of time, to go from 300 to 1,500, you'd raise it by $400 a year over the 3 years. If that's still pretty modest.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it doesn't sound
It doesn't.
reasonable.
No, I think if we do it gradually, it's going like, oh, you're going from $300 to 15 1 year. But I think if we could do something gradually, and then they can plan for it and work toward, they know it's coming. And then
That sounds reasonable.
You want to shoot for that?
That sounds reasonable.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
That work for you?
Me? Yeah.
Well, she was the one who suggested gradual.
You asked for a suggestion.
The amount.
Yeah.
The amount.
Yep.
So then it would be 700 this year, and it would go up from there. So it's add an additional $400 every year, over 3 years. Will bring us to the 1,500.
7, 11, 15.
Anything else you would want adjusted? Now, do you want to go out to bid, or do you want to award the contract with the new amount?
I have no problem with.
Or would they accept it?
Well, that's a question. If
Right.
they won't accept, then you almost have to.
You'll have to
But-
go out to bid.
Right.
So then there would have to be a time for them to accept. So
Right
we
now, they
time
have
to
till
go.
February. They have to let us know February 1. We could reach out to them and say we needed to know by a different date, so like knowing that we're going to increase the rent to this year, and decide, and then they can decide at that, like we give them, like if I talk to them and say, hey, you have till December 15th, I'll just say, this is what the increase is going to be for this year, and the
Now, it
next
means
two.
prices will
Yep.
probably go up minimally. I mean,
Minimally, yep.
if you spread $400 over the amount of business that you do, I mean, I don't know how many hot dogs they sell every day, but I imagine it would, it's not much over the course of a summer, but there would have to be some increases. But certainly the traffic can bear a little bit of increase. It's certainly the cheapest food you'll get and the best hot dog in town. Okay?
Do you want me to reach out to them, and do we want to come up with a time frame for me to talk to them and let them know what's going on and have them get back to us? And so, or do we want to wait till February 1st?
No, I think we should try to
Yep.
do it. If there's a chance we'd have to do an RFP,
Right.
we'd want to know sooner.
And that gives them notice,
Let's say by January 1st, that would give them 2 months to figure out.
Okay.
Okay.
Sure. Okay.
It's not a big amount of money.
No. No. And especially if you consider spreading it out over the,
3 years, yeah.
I'll pay a little more for the smiley fries. It's all good.
yeah, I'll pay a little bit more too. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
The important things of the summer.
The other thing we wanted to come back to you with some information is the extension of the lease agreement to GME FCU, the credit union. So at our last time we had discussed this, you had asked us to see if there was any interest within the city of using that space. There are 2 departments that would very much like to use that space. We need to look at issues like how we would mitigate, any flooding impact, because there, you know, there was flooding down there in the past. Now, Heidi, help me out here. When was last time we had a flood down there was 2010?
I believe so. I spoke with Tim today.
Yep.
And his recollection in speaking with Ryan is that there's only been 2 floods down there that they can remember. One was that significant flood when the entire basement flooded. And then there was another time where there was about a ½ inch of water. They're not quite sure where that came from. And neither of them could remember any issues with sewer backup. I think there was some talk that may have happened at some point, but neither of them have any recollection of that.
Okay. So there's definitely interest from 2 departments who would like to move down, who can use more space. It would certainly, at least one of them would certainly alleviate some crowding issues up here. Either one would alleviate some crowding issues. One would potentially solve more problems up here than others. So I guess the question is whether we wish to renew that lease or not. And you have time. It's not up until 2018, but they asked us for an early reply. It would certainly be nice if the departments knew where we were going with this, so that we could plan on that, because as I say, we do have some issues up here with space. We're constantly evaluating how we're going to handle those problems. We've looked at several alternatives so far that haven't worked, or that we didn't think would work. So if there was an opportunity, and if there was the chance that that was something we could count on, it would certainly help us to know sooner rather than later to be able to look at that. Yes.
What are the other 2 departments that would want to move down there?
The 2 departments that would like to move down are building and zoning, because it would give them that counter space. It would give them a room to have their files. It would allow all 3 of them to be in the same space. So that's the reason that they would like to be down there. It's also close to where they keep their other plans that are down there. The other department that would like to do it is human resources. Now, human resources has, first of all, both the human resource people, Lori Sheets and her associate Zamoa Moreno Boyle, are in an office the size of Heidi's. So the 2 of them are in there with all of their files. All the rest of their files are downstairs. They have no conference room. When people come in to see them about jobs, they stand at a file cabinet and talk, and that's how they sign things. So she would be very interested in having the space to be able to do small training things down there, to be able to meet with people as they come in, to be able to talk to, to have a place to sit down. It would give her a place for a private office, a place for Zamoa to have an office, as well as some of their files. Right now, most of their files are in a GU space, because we have no other room. So it would give them an area for files as well as working space and a conference room.
So.
And it would, I'm sorry, if I could just interrupt for just 1 second. The other thing that she has often expressed an interest in is a place where people can come to her with some degree of privacy, so that when they need to see somebody in human resources for whatever reason, they're not walking through the customer service line and in view of everybody who's, working on that part of the building. So it would give some privacy to people who come to see her about employment issues or HR issues.
It sounds like the space would be better for building and zoning, and then maybe human resources would be able to utilize some of that space.
I'm not sure which one we do, so I'm not asking you to decide. I think we really have to figure that out internally. There are a couple of issues with that too, because then that only frees. You could put somebody back here and move somebody up here, and you could do so. Certainly, we could look at those, but that's something we'd look at internally. I don't think that we would have to decide that today. The real question is whether we want to give notice on, and again, you don't have to decide today, but whether we want to give notice that we would like to retain that space and not renew the lease.
Well, it doesn't make much sense to, if we need the space, that we give it away to somebody else. Doesn't take a lot of rocket scientists to figure that out.
In light of the Colonel Ledger vote, I feel like we don't there's not enough space here. And with the lack of space that is here, I feel like we need to utilize the space that we have for our employees first.
Right.
Having the credit union here would be great if there was the space to do it, but I feel like there's just not the space here. So unless something drastic changes between now and 2018, I don't feel like we've got a choice but to say we need that space for the employees here.
Great. I'm in agreement. Would be my feeling.
Okay, so, do you want to, should we take a vote on that before we notify the credit union? It's not,
I don't think that's really something that you have to take a vote on.
right, because usually we take a vote on something we're going to do, not something we're not going to do. But so shall I take this as the direction of the council to notify the credit union that we would not be renewing the lease in 2018?
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
all right, then that's what we'll do. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, continuing on here. So we have at the top of our appointments, the reappointment of Mark Whalen to the Board of Ethics. Mark Whalen, we had two people whose terms expired this year. Mark Whalen is one, the other one is Jane Moriarty. Jane Moriarty has declined to serve again, so we are looking for somebody to serve on our Board of Ethics. If you have any suggestions, please let me know. I am, as usual, making lots of calls trying to find people. I try to make just a few calls for each thing every time so that I don't ask three people and they all say yes. And then you say, uh-oh, I only have one position. So thank you for your interest, but no. So we are making calls, but if you have somebody in mind that you think would be good for the Board of Ethics, please let me know. But we do need a motion to move the reappointment of Mark Whalen to the Board of Ethics to the meeting of November 7th.
So move. Did you do that?
Okay, did you hear a first and second? I heard two people say first, so pick one. Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining. Municipal projects, Ron?
We just wanted to give you an update as far as the Mother Bailey House structural repairs. We did receive notification from the state. We were on their October listing for the LoCIP, so we are officially approved for that LoCIP funding. And so that project, right now we gave notice of award to the contractor, Yankee Remodeler, and I've been working with Lynn and we have a draft of the contract that hopefully will get out later this week.
Okay. Just wanted to let you know. Revised Code of Ethics. So, I would like to talk a little bit about what precedes this. So, as you probably are aware, if you've been reading the paper, I learned for the first time last Monday, the 17th, from reading the Norwich Bulletin, an article in the Norwich Bulletin, that members of the CMAC Board of Directors and others went on an all-expense-paid trip to the Kentucky Derby at a cost of over $340,000 this past May. Several city employees and a GU commissioner member who served on the CMAC Board of Directors were among the attendees. I was not informed about this trip, which greatly concerns me, as I have also learned that it's been occurring for the past 4 years. And it seems to me that there are a number of people who have no connections to GU, and I believe I should have been kept informed of this, as well as the commission being kept informed of it, and ultimately you being informed of it. And I am very grateful to the day for having provided the information that I have. They sent to me, so through them I got the itineraries for the 2016, 2015, and 2014 trips to the Kentucky Derby and the participants for 2016 and 2015. I have requested additional information from CMEC. So I want to let you know where we are with this and the actions that I'm taking. I've taken several steps to ensure our accountability and the transparency of trips like this. First, I've begun an investigation to determine whether there's been a violation of our work rules. We have also received an ethics complaint, which has been forwarded to the Board of Ethics. And I met with Rob Zuliani today. And we're also going to review our work rules to see where they need to be updated and revised to make sure that something like this would not happen again. The second step is that I am going to ask you tonight for us to be able to consider ways that we can strengthen our own code of ethics. And I don't know if you're familiar with them, but if you read in the charter, you'll see that they are it's a pretty thin document. I have talked to our attorney extensively about this, and there are two ways that we can handle this. We cannot change the code of ethics without a charter revision because they are outlined in the charter. However, we can define them. So we can define what we mean by a gift. We can define circumstances that are illustrative of inappropriate ethics or inappropriate gift receiving or acceptance. So that's something we can do. We can also look at a standard of ethical behavior that we would put in our work rules, so that they would be in our work rules for all employees. So in a few minutes, I'm going to ask us to embark on a conversation around that and how you want to handle that and what you'd like to see in there. On Wednesday at the Groton Utilities Commission meeting, I will ask the commission to direct our representatives to CMEC as well as the representatives for our wholly owned subsidiary Boswell Light and Power to bring a resolution to CMEC that would require that all future strategic retreats or similar functions of CMEC be held in a manner and location that's fiscally responsible and accountable, while still allowing them to do strategic business. So those are the actions that I am taking. There is an editorial that has been written by Drew Rankin, who's the head of CMEC, that will appear in the Day. I don't know the date, but I know it has been written, and I know he's met with the reporter from the Day, as well as Paul Chenier from the editorial board. This is something that I take very seriously. Had I known, I would have advised them not to go. And we're going to look into it, and we're going to respond accordingly. So in terms of the ethics, I wanted to hand out to you a sample code of ethics. Now, we went to CCM. We asked CCM. We didn't go to CCM. We went to them in phone call. We went to CCM and asked them for sample codes of ethics. This is one. We have 14 different policies that they sent us. So this is one. It's for your consideration, and again, we don't have to finish this all tonight, although I would like to move as expeditiously as possible. Although we can't make our code of ethics or our definition of how we, and the samples for our code of ethics retroactive, I still think that you need to learn from every situation, and you learn from the situation and you do something to make sure it doesn't happen again in the future. So I guess my question for you is whether you would like to refer this to a committee, and we know that can be somewhat time consuming, or whether you would like to have a conversation about the things you would like to see in the ethics, and we would bring back to you a draft document. Again, remembering that we can't rewrite our code of ethics, we can only define what our code of ethics means and to give examples. So which direction would you like to go? Would you like to direct us, or would you like to do it through a committee referral?
I would think a committee referral. That would be my
What committee?
position.
Committee
I would-
referral of one of our committees, or?
One of your committees. It would, recognizing the amount of time that you have to work on things, that's gonna, but that's fine. And we can get you these 14 policies, and you can look through them, and we can get you access to someone who can help you write them, or we can bring you a sample document.
Well, you said that it's already in the charter, so this would only be able to explain what some of the things.
So we can do two things. We can make work rules that have standards of ethical behavior, and those would be policy for work rules. As far as what the charter allows, and the charter is really very thin compared to other municipal documents. We can't change the code, but we can define. For instance, what is a gift? because this says that you can't accept gifts. So what is a gift? What do we mean by that? It says that you can't take a gift and with the expectation that it would, let me see, let me get the language correctly. That it would, that there would be an understanding that the vote, official action, or judgment of the city official would be or had been influenced by it. So we can define what we mean by that. What's an example of when you're being influenced, or, you know, whether it's a business you do business with. Is that an example of a time when they might be expecting something from you? So those things we can do.
So versus a committee was what?
So we could either refer it to committee and the committee works on writing these things, or you can tell us what you'd like to see in that, and we will bring back a draft to you at, for instance, the next committee of the whole.
Yeah, I would rather see a draft come back.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Thank you. As much fun as it might be to have it at a committee and to be on that committee, with the timeliness of this, my recommendation is we give it to you and give it to staff, and have staff come. We don't have time to spend months on this, bickering back and forth in a committee trying to figure out what things mean. It would be, my opinion is, it would be better if a document was put together and presented to us, and then the council as a whole could then review it and vote on it.
I would agree with that.
And we can certainly do a combination. We could bring you a sample, and then you could say, we'd like our committee to review it next time, and then we'll get back to you with whether we want any, you know, additions or corrections.
Because in line with what Keith was saying, you know, some of the department heads are so much more familiar with their particular situations versus what we might think as laymen to the different
Well, you know, this whole situation has engendered lots of conversation. So for instance, we send people to chamber events. So does that count as a gift of dinner? In my opinion, no, because you're doing the business of the city. We went to the Martin Luther King dinner the other night.
Right.
I don't consider that a gift, you know, because first of all, we opened it to certain classes of people. You know, we couldn't offer it to all 500 people, but it was a charitable contribution to the Martin Luther King Scholarship Fund, and it was important for the city to show support of that event. That when you go to chamber, you're interacting with the businesses that we do business with, and we're paying for those tickets, or we've sponsored that event, that kind of thing. So those kinds of things have to be defined. What do we mean as a gift? That was one of the questions to me. You know, is a free golf trip a gift as opposed to going to a chamber dinner? How do you draw those lines? That can be done in definition.
I took the opportunity to look at the state's ethics website as my own company. I've looked at our gift giving requirements and things like that, and there are rules about, for example, I can't give a customer anything that more than intrinsic value, such as a coffee cup or a pen or something like that. If you take the state's training, they talk about a value of $10 for some things. They talk about if a supervisor is given a subordinate something, it could be up to, I think it's $99.99. If somebody's going to give food, it's $49.99, but the person giving it has to be there. I mean, there's a lot of rules about what there is. I mean, if you look at what was done here, it just looks like impropriety, because it looks like just a few people were going out and having a good time on the backs of everybody else. I've talked to a lot of people, and that's the concern, because it reflects badly on the city, because we're part of that, and we're part of we have an ownership in CMEC, and it just reflects badly on us. So we need to look at I agree, we need to look at values, but also what kind of things can you do, because ultimately, if you work for the municipality or work for the utility, you're representing the city. And sometimes people forget that. If they're out there in their vehicle and they stop at Dunkin' Donuts to get a coffee and somebody sees that vehicle, they're like, why's that vehicle there? Or if they see somebody in a shirt that says City of Groton and they're doing something that that individual doesn't think is right, that reflects back on the City of Groton. And that's all part of the ethics.
Having a charter revision, to me, doesn't sound like a bad idea to have it concrete
Well,
and for
Lengthy
long term.
process, so.
It's a lengthy process and it's extremely expensive.
and it would be to just do
$20,000 just for the legal ad. We-
just the legal ad.
We don't have.
And we just did a
that kind of
charter
money.
revision.
We just did it in 2011.
Recently.
G-
You know, last-
Generally, you know, if we had a lot of things we wanted to change in the charter, I think that would be a good idea. I think that in this case, since we do have, you know, I have talked to our attorney about this, he says as long, we can define these things and we can say what a gift is and we can say what an expectation of a judgment, an action or whatever is. What does that look like? What are some things that we would want?
Or who might be able to attend?
Sure.
Right, so if we deal with it that way, it certainly would hold us until such time as we might want to redo the whole charter. It's an 18-month process to change the charter, because you have to follow back from, remember this, Deb had this all written out for us. You have to follow back from the date that you want to have the vote,
Yep.
and we did it in conjunction with a November election. So you'd have to do a November election or a May election, and then you have to go back so many times, and it took us, I believe it was 18 months to do the last one,
Right.
with all the hearings. So this would certainly be more expedient.
Okay.
Well, and also, you know, we can define what the terms mean here, and that's okay for us to do. And then if there's anything that comes out of this that impacts work policy, that's a separate issue from the charter anyway.
Yes.
So work policies and directives and things like that may come out of this as a result of whatever the investigation brings up. And that's just normal business, day-to-day business of refining business policy, of refining business policy.
And that's why I said before, that's why the individual departments, there might be directives or memos of understanding that would come out that would not be a change in the charter.
So, and clearly there are, you know, there are different levels of community activity across the across the organization. Because GU does sponsor things, they often do bring employees to events. They sponsor chamber events, they sponsor things, and often that comes with some seats. So I know that Deb Gaudette will offer that up first to the Utilities Commission, then it often goes to the council. By that time, it's usually filled. But you know, and then sometimes it goes out to employees, but there's a system to it, and there's a reason that opportunity doesn't come up as much in some other departments where there isn't that kind of community interaction at that level of the level of networking events and things like that.
But that is still a city event.
Yes.
And the city is basically putting out the funds for that. In this particular case, the funds came from another entity, and it looks like it's in the form of a gift. And so that's,
So even if you look at, in this one sample we provided rather than all 14, if you look at the definitions of gift on page, it's the second page of this, it's number 11. Even those definitions, were we to have them to go along with our code of ethics that's in the charter, would be very helpful in distinguishing between, you know, what's a city-sponsored event and, you know, what's something beyond. So this says these things are, it gives a list of things that are not considered gifts.
So this could all be added to define definitions.
So it would become the rules and procedures for using the charter. So, for instance, the Board of Ethics, the first thing they did, and it was up until now, it has been their full work, and they finished it a while back, maybe a year and a half ago, I'd have to check that date to be more certain, but they took section 4 and made a series of rules and procedures for how the Board of Ethics will carry out the charges in this charter. So they're not changing the charter or changing those, but, you know, how will this look when we render opinions? You know, what are the steps we're going to, how will we notify people? And we can do the same things with defining the rules and procedures for this code of ethics. We're not changing them, we're defining what they mean. Yes?
So you had mentioned there's code of ethics, but there's also work standards.
So we have a series of policies for the city which cover a number of employment-related issues. It covers the use of IT. It covers the use of there are work rules. There are rules for reporting any kind of accidents. So there are a whole set of rules that employees work by, and one of them, and we can make within those rules a set of ethical standards, ethical behaviors.
And each department within the city has those rules. They're not all the same. You know,
Mostly they are, but police is different.
Police would be different,
Fire
could
is
be
some different.
Highway could be different, you know.
But we do have a set of city rules that apply to all departments. But police do have a whole big green book of rules that they abide by. The fire department has rules that they abide by because it's a different kind of job. GU has a different set of rules for safety, but the work rules apply across the board.
Okay, so what I'm getting at is, for 4 years this has happened and you haven't known about it because nobody's reported out on it. So is there a way to make it very clear you report on this? Or
Absolutely.
there are consequences?
Absolutely, there is. And that's something that we can put in work rules. Absolutely. Yep.
And who has oversight of CMEC as far as their finances and how?
The board of directors, which consists of representatives from the member organizations. So the member organizations are Jewett City, Basra, Groton, Norwich, and the 2 Norwalks. There are 2 taxing districts in Norwich which have a utility. I think it's South Norwalk and East Norwalk. Oh, it's Norwalk and South Norwalk, okay.
No, and they would be obligated to report to us if any.
No,
they did
we
not.
cannot
Well,
set
see,
the
that's-
rules for CMEC, but we
Right,
can
that's
set the
what I-
rules
So
by
our
how
commission.
our representatives, what our representatives can do. So CMEC does have a code of ethics, but of course it doesn't say anything about taking something from their own organization. What we're saying is that we might want to set standards that say, you can't accept things from businesses that we do business with, or from outside organizations, or anything above the value of X, and that takes care of, you know, any of this question anyway. So we can set the rules for how our people have to behave, and then they would have to say, I'm sorry, I'd have to decline that, or I'd have to get permission to do that. I'd have to get that authorized.
Now, we have to find a specific excerpt in the charter to feed off of what we're just saying as an addition and not make it basically an alteration of the charter itself.
Correct. We can't alter the charter without going to the revision, the Charter Revision Commission, but we can, for each one of these codes in here, when it says, for instance, the first one says, no city official shall accept any employment or have any substantial financial interest in. We can define what substantial financial interest means, you know, so that we can define those things, and then we can give examples, because it is thin. It doesn't have many examples. It doesn't have definitions. We did actually have a resolution prior to this. It was passed in 1993, I believe, which was much more specific. And did define gifts and things. However, when this was passed, and I'm not sure that was directly an intent, but it starts by saying this code shall establish and define ethical standards for the city, and it kind of did away with 1993. So now we have to work off this and define what this means.
how many pages of the ethics we have?
This is all there is of ethics here to here.
Yeah.
That's it. The rest is what the Board of Ethics and the duties of the board. That's all we got. So you see, that's pretty thin.
It's very thin.
But it's like these big general summations of the same kinds of things you'll see in here, only these are all delineated.
Right.
So yeah, it's kind of thin.
Less than a page.
Yeah, less than a page. I think if you take this and add it to this, yes, it's just a little short, yeah. So,
But like you said, it gives us the opportunity to.
yep,
To make it so that we understand and anybody reading it would understand and set limitations.
yep.
Makes sense, makes good sense.
Okay, so we will work on that, and we will get it back to you. I do have one other thing, if I could have your indulgence for adding one other thing to the agenda, we would need to move that. Okay, can we have a motion to add to the agenda and this is just an informational piece, it's the job description for the economic development specialist.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, this is a double page. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. So when we came to you, or when I should say the Economic Development Commission came to you and asked for the money to be moved from the Community and Beautification Development Fund, Community Development and Beautification Fund to a special fund for economic development, it was indicated at that time that a large portion of that money would be for a part-time economic development specialist. And we indicated that we would come to you with the, that we would show you what that job description was before we posted it. We are ready to post this, so we wanted you to have it. This is a new position. It explains that it's 19 hours, and it really kind of defines the work that this person would be doing. So we're not bringing this person on without purpose or without a specific job. So I'll give you a minute to look that over, and then I'll try to answer any questions, and we can get somebody else here if you need questions I can answer. So nobody's expecting that this person will do all of this all at once. But this is the kind of work this person would be involved in, and obviously there are some tasks in here that you could see could be done, and then you'd move on to the next thing. But the real general purpose of this person is to really be able to aid businesses, to be able to be that liaison between the business and the actual like the planning and zoning that they actually have to go to, and the city planner, because with that buffer, somebody could actually mentor or assist a business through the process without the city planner being in a position of seemingly giving an answer yes or no to something when they shouldn't. So that's basically that's a large part of this, is to staff the Economic Development Commission, but also to assist businesses in their development, let's put it that way. So this does not require an action on your part, but it is something we said that we would bring to you before we posted the position. So unless there's an objection, we're going to begin to post this.
The only thing I would be opposed to is it's a new position, part-time, and it says the expectation is that the position will move to full-time. It's sort of an assumption that it's going to be a full-time position. I know we don't know that it will be, but shouldn't give anyone
Would you rather that say
may.
the position may move to full-time as the city's?
I would think so.
Okay. Can do that.
Actually, on the same point, why 19 hours?
Because over 19 hours, and you have to start to get into benefits and things like that, and we didn't budget for that. We budgeted for 19 hours. They'd get their FICA and things like that, but we wouldn't be doing health care and that kind of thing. Once you get to full-time, you're really talking about another 50% of salary going toward benefits, and we just couldn't start that way.
Okay.
The other thing, at one time we talked about this person answering directly to me, but I really think it makes more sense for this person to be under the supervision of the city planner. This is not my area of expertise. It is Barbara's area of expertise. She'll know whether things are being done correctly. Obviously, she would bring any concerns to me, or, you know, anything like that, but really this belongs under the planning department, not under me.
Absolutely.
You don't have very many people reporting as it is.
Well, and this would also raise this position to like a direct report, which I'm not sure would be appropriate either. So. Anything else? Then we really can take a motion to adjourn, even
Motion
without
to
Andy.
adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Thank you very much.